Hello, this is Pastor Hinsey Green of the Filling Station Podcast. Want to welcome you on the line. What a blessing it is to have this time to spend with you. Now, the Filling Station is designed for believers, dreamers, and achievers. Now, here's really the story behind the Filling Station. Early in life, when I was entrepreneurial, I was active in church, but the church kind of didn't fill me with some of the things I needed to go after the kind of dreams that I had. And so, in fact, true story, some of my friends was selling Amway. Now, I was never interested in selling soap like that, but I would go to the Amway meetings because that's the only place I could find to get that little extra shot in the arm to keep going at the things that I was doing. And so God challenged me to create a forum for believers, dreamers, and achievers that would give them that little extra oomph to fill them up to go after the dream. So that's what the podcast is all about. We actually have a Sunday service that you can check out on Facebook under Emmaus Christian Church at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday morning. And it's a real clean, concise service. As I said, 59 minutes designed to fuel your life. Well, we've been in a series where we were talking about God's plan, and what that was all about was even though you have big dreams and plans, making sure that your dreams and plans line up with God's dreams and plans for you. Because whatever you're dreaming and planning, I guarantee you, God's plan for you is bigger than your plan for you. The Bible tells us whatever you ask or think, that God can abundantly exceed that. So that what that literally means is God's plan for you is always bigger than your plan for you. So we talked about the plan being a G thing, a God thing. Then we talked about the fact that when you are actually planning for this dream, that you got to bring your whole self to the table, the spiritual you and the intellectual you. And one of the things that we are offering that's a little different is a lot of people don't bring their whole self to the planning table. They'll bring their cultural self or their intellectual self, but they're not also bringing their spiritual self. So God's plans are always three things: systematic, strategic, and spiritual. Got that? Systematic, strategic, and spiritual. So over the last couple weeks, we've been talking about the other 4 G's that are essential to a good plan. Number 1 was goal. Number 2 was game plan. And that is the actual written plan for what you're trying to accomplish. Number 3 was the group. And the group really had to do with being strategic once again, and systematic and spiritual about who you add onto your team. Not just having people on your team because they're in your family or because you grew up with them or because they're from your side of town, but actually strategically picking your group. Just like we use the example of Jesus and the disciples. If you look at the personality of the 12 disciples, they are all over the place, but they're all over the place because God picked out, or Jesus picked out, very strategic personalities, very strategic traits in each person to build his team. We established that if Jesus needed a team, don't you think you need the team? So today I'm on the last G of the planning process, and that last G is the governor. Now this is really important and can be really challenging. So the real core of what we're talking about here is you have to inspect what you expect. Once again, you have to inspect what you expect. So now you've gotten the goal, you've gotten the game plan, You got the group. Now somebody has to manage that process. It's kind of like a basketball coach. Even though the game plan is laid out, the coach has to oversee the whole process, and that's what we're calling the governor. Now, here's the challenge. The governor has to have a certain type of mentality. So let me be super transparent here. Like, I am a great creative. I flow. I will come up with ideas. Throughout my life, I've had quite a few multi-million ideas. That is, ideas that have generated multi-million dollars. But I am not a good governor. A governor has to be one that oversees the details of what happens, that collects the data, that looks at where everything is, so that the governor, even if you're not the governor, but you're the head of the project, the governor can report back to you and can report those things that need to be shifted or changed, or even where the plan may demand a pivot. If you are not looking over the process, if nobody is governing the process, I promise you the plan will run amok. And so it is critical for you to understand what your gifting is. Now, one of the worst mistakes I made in my life, there was one time I had a business was successful, and I'm a good, what I call, creative manager. So that means when I'm in the developmental stage, when I am creating, I am at my best. My juices flow. I get excited. I'm turned on. My brain is firing. I am not a good maintenance manager. Like when it gets down to the nuts and bolts of looking at the numbers and keeping up with this. Now, if I have a governor that will feed me that information, then I can put it into my creative process and come up with solutions. And there have been many times in business I have been able to make those kind of pivots because I had the benefit of a governor over watching the details. So the governor is critical, and the governor may not be you. And so in your project, you have to bring a person. If you do not have a governor's traits, a detailed traits, a look over all of the details, keep up with all the data, if you don't have that natural ability, then your project must have a governor. If you've got to pay the governor, then build that into the process. If you've got a friend or an associate that has that kind of natural characteristic, then bring them in, offer them a piece of the project, make it worth their while to be their governor. And so I'll close with this concept. Because in the one business, after I got it developed, I did not put a governor in place. So I was trying to be the governor. I am not a natural governor. And so being the governor took a whole lot of energy out of me. So I was trying to be the governor, which is something I'm not, while at the same time I was trying to go develop another project. So here's what kept happening. I would go to develop the other project. Because there's no governor here, this business would go down. Then I'd have to stop what I was doing creatively, come back and do governor work. I'd get that business back up. Then when I tried to go back to create, then this business would go down. And here's what I'm saying. At the time, this was back in the 90s, early 90s, I could have paid the governor $35,000 a year, and that would have given me the freedom to go create another project that would have generated millions. But because I was not aware of this governor concept, I let $35,000 keep me from generating millions. So, in your game plan, you got to decide who is the governor, and you have to inspect what you expect. This is Pastor Henry Green, and this is the Filling Station Podcast. Join us again next week.